And welcome to the Changemakers channel, where we discuss changemakers who are positively impacting the world and empowering people to share their voice. Being a changemaker is usually about standing up and doing good in the world and going against the grain. And today I'm delighted to welcome a woman who is empowering writers to share their story. Kirsty Ogden of Brisbane Self-Publishing Service, who's a professional editor and publishing consultant. Welcome, Kirsty. It's great to have you here today.
Thanks, Lee. Thanks for having me.
Well, you know, I am a huge fan of books and writing, and I would love to hear what led to you empowering others to share their voice, because you don't just leave school and become a book consultant like yourself. How did it all happen?
Well, initially I worked in libraries for many years, which I enjoyed. I've always loved books. I lived in a part of Sydney where we didn't get good television reception. My brother was very keen on music and had all sorts of hobbies, but for me, reading was my go-to. My parents interested in design. My dad's an architect. My mum worked in interior design. So design's been part of my DNA in many ways. So when I was going through my divorce, I decided I'd take the leap and study graphic design. I'd always thought, oh, I can't draw. How could I do design? But computers come along. You don't actually need to. Design is more about sort of perception and just working the elements of the design in harmony. So to have that eye. But when I came out of my design degree, I worked in marketing. So that was my happy place. Didn't seem to really gel. So I ended up doing a postgrad course in editing and publishing. And once I'd finished that, it just seemed like all the pieces of the puzzle fitted together. My background with books, my graphic design, and my editing. I also became quite involved in the editing community here in Brisbane and became good friends with another editor. And though we run separate businesses, we've essentially been running a sort of joint operation since about, and since then worked with many authors and many repeat clients initially. One of our first clients, a retired school teacher, was like a gift to us. Such a great client, so appreciative. We ended up doing 9 books with him, and he went from being a good writer to just excellent. And to see the improvement of an author from being essentially quite a good writer to an absolute excellent writer as a result of that sort of coaching process with editing it's really rewarding.
That's fantastic. It sounds like such a story of synchronicity where you were sort of like, oh, who am I to be graphic designer? I'm going through all this life change, and then you do it, and then you test the water in marketing's not happening, and editing, everything falls into place. And then you have an amazing client.
Yes. And I always had a love of books. For me, publishing seemed like, oh, that's where all the cool kids are. So the fact that I'm now essentially like a publishing house, not really, obviously I'm just providing those services, with having built up a network of other service providers. So I have built links with printers, a woman who does ebooks, and a woman who does audiobooks. So to have built that network and then been able to put that together to streamline the process, that's what we're doing, is taking authors on that journey of what each of the steps are to streamline it, because it's a bit overwhelming initially. But it was just information that I naturally absorb because I have such a love of the topic. So I just taught myself by putting all the pieces together. Not having had a background in traditional publishing, the advent of self-publishing is so empowering for authors. Many stories that wouldn't have got out there are now possible to out in the world.
It sounds like with that first author that came into your world, it was doing the reps. He was already quite good, but as he kept publishing his 9 books, he got better and better at his writing, which is fantastic. And in the world of self-publishing and that complexity of it, which you've got a very good understanding of, and you've got the network, because it's all about who you know, isn't it, about getting the projects done?
Yes.
What resources do you provide to guide people?
Now that I have had a lot of experience, I offer publishing consultation, and over time I've accumulated boxes of books from some of my clients, and that's a great resource to show people the different sizes books are, the different sort of styles, what's possible, ranging from children's books to novels to business books. And I also offer free information resources, so at each stage of the project I'm providing information so that it's not too overwhelming.
And can they get that from your website?
Yes, some of it, but some of it is part of what's the process as we go through.
Yeah. That makes sense. And have you written a book yourself as well? I believe you are a published author.
Yes, I am the proud author of 1 book.
Tell us about the journey of you writing this. How did it feel to put yourself out there as an
It's
author?
really interesting, actually, because I would always be saying to my clients that editors are very supportive. We're on your side. We're not judging. We're trying to polish your words to bring the best out, to make your message as clear as possible for the reader. So what an editor is doing is working as an advocate for the reader. So while we might not know your subject area, particularly with more specialized books, we're knowledgeable, educated people. So we kind of are representative of the average reader. And if we're finding it difficult to understand, then chances are other readers will too. So that's the skill that an editor is bringing to a manuscript. But I must admit, when I went through the process myself, I was very nervous. I felt like I'm going to be judged, and even more so because I should know better.
Tell us more. This is what it's all about. This is what holds
Yes.
people back, isn't it?
Yes. So I have a team of referral partner editors. So while I'm an editor myself, I don't tend to do as much editing. I deal more with the project management, the design side, putting all the pieces together. So with editing, there are 3 stages, what's called structural development, which is how the framework of the book fits together. This is particularly important with fiction. So you want to know that the character development, the plot, the dialogue, it's all working. But even with nonfiction, because you're taking the reader on a journey and you want that journey to be mapped out in a way that makes it as user-friendly for the reader as possible. Copy editing is more what people think of editing being the sort of punctuation, grammar, spelling, sentence structure. So you go from the macro level, the development, to the micro level, the more detail. Proofreading then happens after typesetting, which is like the quality control side of things. So I was aware that I did have quite a good structure for my book, but every manuscript should be copy edited. And so one of my editors did, and I was gobsmacked at the suggestions she had. So once I got over myself, was trusting. You need to trust that the editor has your best interests at heart. It was fabulous. And then I did the typesetting, and then I had another editor. And it's always good to have a different editor to proofread, as opposed to one you've had who's been the copy editor or the developmental editor, the structural editor. And just a much more polished result than I would have had I just put my book out. Even though the quality of the writing was quite good, it took it to the next level, definitely. So much improved.
I have so many friends writing books, and I was telling them about a business book I bought recently, and the author did 9 drafts, 9 reviews, and going through it and really breaking it down and trying to make it so simplified. And some of them were so shocked, because would you agree that some people pump out information as their book and they say, I've written a book? They come to you and
Absolutely.
say, I've written
I
a
mean,
book.
people who say I can write a book in 30 days, I'm like, okay, I don't know what the quality is going to be like. Books take time.
So it sounds like it's a really empowering process, because part of it is like we've got to get out of our own way and trust this process and let go of parts of ourselves, is it? Of the things that hold us back, like what we believe an author should be or what we believe the process should be. What do you think about that?
Definitely. I do feel that the clients that I enjoy working with are those that are trusting of our expertise. And that's the beauty about self-publishing. You can do what you like. And there are certainly people who upload a Word manuscript to Amazon and create a cover on some sort of template, and then they wonder why their book won't sell. And that's
I just read one of those. I just read one. Yeah, it was a biography about a famous person. It was shocking. I could have just
Quality is awful. And then editors are the behind the scenes. I mean, it is all about the author, but good quality, the really top level authors will always acknowledge it and the work that an editor has put in, because they know without that assistance, their book would not have reached the polished that it is.
It's like a team, isn't it? You really need a team
definitely.
to self-publish and do it well.
Yes, absolutely.
And so tell me a bit about what has changed in the industry, because what year was it when you started?
It was around 2012, 2013, which was very fortuitous for me insofar as that self-publishing was really starting to take off. It was still early days. We're 10 years on, and in that time, people were very suspicious, vanity publishing. They didn't feel like it was the real deal. I think that's changing a lot.
Tell us more about that. Yeah.
Perceptions, to the point that there are traditionally published authors out there who are opting to self-publish new manuscripts because they have more creative control. They get to market a lot faster. Potentially they can make more money, particularly if big name authors have got that following. Then they've got distribution networks in place in many ways that they're getting a bigger slice of the pie by self-publishing. publishing.
right. And what would an author who has taken the time and worked with you or someone like you to really craft and polish their book and get it out there, how would they go about making an income from that? Because self-publishing has changed the ball game. People can do it themselves, but they need professional guidance, definitely, to be above the just upload your Microsoft Word document and press print. So
Yeah.
how do they go about making money? What would be some of the steps?
Well, I'll tell you about this great example I have of a client. He is very interested in staghorn ferns. That's a pretty niche topic. The chances of him having a traditional publisher pick up his manuscript, think it's got financial viability. Because at the end of the day, book publishing companies are about making money. You can have the best quality manuscript, but unless you've got a sort of following or a name, or they see that perception. And I mean, the fantastic example, of course, with that is J.K. Rowling and how she'd initially tried multiple publishers and
18.
yeah, and eventually somebody, Bloomsbury, accepted her. Happy days for them, of course. Who knew that it was going to be the phenomenal success that it
And
was?
I heard that she did the best deal because she got royalties per unit sold, not the upfront grant, which would have been
Yes,
interesting because I know she was
yes.
struggling.
Yeah, exactly. Fortune's definitely smiled on her.
Yeah.
So this author, Daryl's such a great example of someone who is just so passionate, so driven about his area of interest that he published one book with us. Now, most of my clients want to get their book up on Amazon, and 10 years ago, potentially if you had a book up on Amazon, you could sell it. You can still sell it now, but not without a phenomenal amount of marketing because there's so much competition. He's opted not to do that. He's initially wanted to do a print run of 500, which is a lot of books. So sometimes I feel like I'm raining on an author's parade in a way, but I'd like to give them a reality check. Do you realize how many boxes of books 500 are? There's going to be lots of cartons of books sitting in your house. Do you really think you can? So, but he's done it like 3 times. And this is just through Facebook. He belongs to lots of Facebook groups. So who even knew that there were staghorn Facebook lovers groups out there, but obviously there are. So there's really niche areas of interest. He goes to nurseries and gardening centres and gives talks. He is so motivated, and that passion that he has for his topic really shines through. I just observe on Facebook when he's posting, and he has such a big response, and people are lining up to buy his book. We've just published his 2nd book now.
He's a great example, isn't he?
And
Because
he sells his book for quite a lot of money. Like they're full color with glossy photos, and they're not cheap books. They're sort of around $45, I think he's selling them for. So he's well and truly recouping the printing costs, the publication costs, and more.
such a great story because he's passionate. He's
Yes.
got a very specific in-depth knowledge, which will
Yes.
contribute so much to the world. And for the people that want to learn that and
Yeah.
solve problems for people with their staghorns, it must be so key for a person to really get behind their book and not to think they're going to sit back and someone else is doing it for them. You've got to be a real
Absolutely.
action taker. And
Yes, definitely. And that's both the empowering thing about self-publishing, because it's all on you. You take responsibility, you have control. But also for a lot of people, it's the overwhelming thing, which is where they want a traditional publisher. And look, there's definitely advantages. The distribution network that traditional publishers have in place is sort of the reach that a lot of self-publishers just don't have access to. But we would presume that authors are creative people. You just need to get creative with your marketing as well, and how you can make it work. I have another example of a client who has written the fictionalized version of fact of his family history of bushranging. And he's also printed multiple copies of his book, and they're doing the Grey Nomad trip of going around Australia and all country towns, and the country towns have little historical centres. So he puts copies of he sells multiple copies of his book as well, particularly in this bushranger country of Victoria and southern New South Wales.
where that history is so rich.
Yeah. So those are good examples of 2 authors who've been really creative in the way that they get their message out there, sell copies of their books.
So would you say that the grey nomads and people later in life, this is a great opportunity for them when they've finally got the time to do it, that they're really the only ones? Or can anyone that can write and is ready to get behind their book and share the message, can anyone do it, or is there a better time?
Well, obviously anybody can do it, but I think having the time and the financial resources. I have a lot of people who think they might like to publish a children's book, and then unfortunately for them, they are a bit surprised at the cost involved. So it's not a whim thing. It's a bit of a luxury hobby or interest. We are professionals providing professional service, and it does take time. People ask me how long will it take to publish their book. 2 to 4 months is average, and potentially longer for more complicated projects. So
I think that's very quick. It's
yeah.
great.
Yes, when traditional publishing, you're looking at a turnaround of 18 months to 2 years.
Correct.
So that's why self-publishing, it's great for people writing business books who want to be on the speaking circuit or want to give their book out as a business card, which is in many sense why I published the book that I did as a resource and that value add to my business.
Yes.
It's a really good way to encapsulate your knowledge in a form that's more permanent. People that go on podcasts or even on LinkedIn, having the title, like ad line of being a published author, gives a lot of kudos to people. People have a respect of the time and commitment that is involved in publishing a book. It's a lot more complex than doing some social media posts or a blog post.
It's true, isn't it, that you get an instant sort of halo around your brand or reputation as an author. And do you think that was a bit linked in with why some people might find it hard or they feel hesitant, or even in yourself, it was a bit of a journey to overcome that and think, oh, I can step into the realm and be an author?
Yes, definitely. But I think it's also a reality check that we're just here pushing buttons and out. A book pops out.
Yeah.
A lot of work involved. And an author's work isn't done just when they have written the manuscript. The editing process is a collaborative one. We're not just saying this is the result, that it's interactive. It's almost a conversation that the author and the editor are having via track changes in the Word document. So it's quite a hands-on collaborative process.
Fantastic. And I don't think that books can be done without it. And it sounds like there's 3 ways, a person can go for traditional publishing, they can do professional self-publishing with support, or they can get their Microsoft Word document and just flick it up onto the internet and hope.
Yes.
And I know which one I would choose, definitely.
Yeah.
And it sounds like this journey of empowerment for authors is about them beginning by recognizing they're going to do it, or they know that they're a writer. But for some of them, do you feel like they go through a bit of a shift when they share their story? Because some of the most powerful stories are often taboo, or the family hasn't been able to speak about it, or no one's put it into book form, and it's a lot of scattered stories that people do talk about. What do you think about that cathartic side of it?
Yes, a lot of people who've experienced trauma in their life, and other people will say to them, you should write a book. And I do think can be a very powerful form of therapy. I mean, journaling is known to be a really helpful process for people. So it's taking that to the next level. Having said that, while it might be empowering and it's not necessarily something that other people are going to find interesting, but one of the things that I will always do when an author approaches me and wants a quote for our services is find out their motivation. Obviously with fiction, they'd like their story to be out there, they want to sell it. For other people, it's more about personal satisfaction. I mean, we have clients that just want to collate their family history. So for them, I'll often suggest possibly you could skip editing. Your family aren't going to mind if there's some typos and spelling mistakes in your manuscript. It's really a case of having the story and photos that can be passed on to future generations, children, grandchildren. Whereas with anyone who wants to have their book available for sale, we'd highly recommend, we can't insist, but we'd highly recommend that they have their manuscript edited to just polish it to a standard that will make it reflect well on their writing skills. And there are legal aspects of publishing that people do need to be mindful of, copyright and defamation. So when you get into the area of wanting to tell their often difficult stories from a place of trauma, potentially there could be defamation issues. So we always have the caveat that we're not lawyers, but we are mindful of, and we point out any potential defamation or infringement copyright issues as well.
That's right. It's not for the faint-hearted. And I think that if people see it for what it is, through the way that you've described it so well, they must feel incredibly proud when they've got that book that they can hold. And tell me about that moment for people.
While my clients are my clients, and some of them become, I wouldn't say it's close friends, but we, along with my colleague Patrice, we've set up a networking group and we meet, and this evolved out of us deciding it'd be really fun to have a Christmas party and get to know people that we've been on a journey with for several months, just via phone and email, to meet them face to face. So we had the opportunity to meet them. And that's great because they feel our enthusiasm and support, because we're providing professional services process, but we're also providing that moral support and that encouragement to keep going with what can become difficult and they can feel bogged down. So having that proud author moment at the end is a celebration, and I'll post it on my social media and to celebrate the fact that they have made it through. It's an achievement.
And that's their first bit of publicity, which is great. Publicity is such an important part of being an author. As you mentioned with the fellow that's written about the staghorns, and in his niche category, he's just putting it out there with publicity. It's been so great hearing about the author journey and becoming self-published through a professional self-publishing service. And what would you say to anybody that's thinking about turning their writing into a book?
But absolutely 100% advise people to do their due diligence, just become educated, a bit of what's involved with editing, typesetting, cover design, all of the steps. But then once you sign up, listen to the professionals, take that advice. You're paying for it, use that service, and you'll get the best out of it.
So you've got to commit and go all in. They're wise words, and they're the words of someone that's walked the path, definitely. But I'm so thrilled for you being alongside so many authors and watching them just bloom and have their proud author moment.
Yeah, it's very rewarding. I love what I do, and hopefully it shows, and that energy is there. And I am confident that if an author comes to me, whatever state their manuscript is, if they go through the process, they'll feel happy that it's better. I've got to work with what's there. It's very hard to get that concept across to people until after they've been through the process. So I have so many authors who say to me, oh, my mum checked it. I've got a friend who's an English teacher. Then they see what an editor can do. And it is magic in some respects, how much better it can be. And they are impressed. So that's really satisfying to see that they see that time, that effort, that expense is definitely worth it.
What a gift to the world, definitely, providing the service. And through you, they get their book out to the world.
Having done it so many times now, I know that if people follow the process, they'll be pleased with the result.
I love that message, just to trust the process.
And so many people still feel, like I did, very interestingly, I'm going to be judged. And we're not. We're supporting you. We're trying to make you shine. We know what we're talking about. It's a conversation. We're not dictating the term. And that is where self-publishing does give writers that opportunity to have more of a collaborative relationship that would not be the case with traditional publishing, where you are surrendering your manuscript. In a sense, you're selling your right to your book. This is a collaborative process. So as creative people, as long as you're motivated and do as some of my clients have done, take responsibility for the marketing, for getting that message out there, you can get such a great result.
Yep, absolutely. Thank you so much for being here today, Kirsty. It's been such a pleasure to really go behind the scenes on the world of self-publishing.
Thanks, Lee. Great to talk to you.